Hello, it's Martin from Wisely Automotive. I'm at the edge of Liverpool in some random little car park with a BMW i3 which I just collected. And even though it's a slightly older 2016 example, I thought I would take this opportunity to show you around and explain why we still love the i3 even in 2023. I have a long journey ahead, so let me jump in. The previous owner was kind enough to fully charge the car for me, and I've already put my first charging stop in as IONITY Stafford. It's only about 80 miles away, and as you can see, the i3 is predicting 144 miles on a charge. But you have to keep in mind that really is just an estimate based on the previous driving style, and given this vehicle was factory reset to remove all the personal information, it doesn't know what it's talking about. In fact, now it's very clever because I put the destination into the built-in sat-nav. It has adjusted the estimated remaining mileage to 91 miles. That should be fine, and I can obviously adjust the plan if needed. So let me get going, reset the trip computers. Before you point out, yes, I'm aware that there is a blob on the screen. It's a very common failure for these business sat-nav units, and a brand new display can cost thousands from BMW. But if you have a similar problem and are on a budget, we have a guide on how to repair it yourself, so we will leave that linked in the top right-hand corner. Other than that, I do have to say I love coming back to these i3s. I may be a little bit biased because my personal i3 used to have the same interior, but it still feels so fresh, so futuristic, yet not overdone and too tacky. In Europe, this is called the Lodge trim, and it has these part leather seats in combination with wool, so the area you sit on is nice and comfortable, regardless of whether it's summer or winter, but you still have the leather accents. And there's this swooping open pore matte eucalyptus trim on the dashboard. Of course, if this is not your cup of tea, you can still go for the full leather interior, or on the other end of the spectrum, the base interior was cloth. But even that one still feels nice and premium. Further up on the dash and on the door cards, you've got these scan-off panels. They are basically pressed plant fibers with the idea to replace plastic panels in an effort to reduce the overall carbon footprint of the car even before it actually leaves the factory. Again, you have to keep in mind the production of the i3 started in 2013, so this was really forward thinking of BMW, and it's a shame that it hasn't trickled down further into their lineup. Other than the trims, it's the feeling of space as well. You have to keep in mind this is a compact city car, about 4 meters long, yet on the inside this feels more spacious than a BMW 3 Series. There's no central console, no middle tunnel, I can spread out, the windscreen is far away, so I really have an amazing feeling of space. It is a strict 4-seater, but even in the back, 2 adults will fit behind myself, and I'm about 6 foot tall. So we would say that's definitely not bad for a car of these dimensions. With all of that said, I will enjoy the journey, put some music on, and check in with you at the first charging stop. Charging up now as planned, arrived with a massive margin, still had about a third of the battery left, but it's going pretty quickly, and that's one of the things which we really appreciate about the i3. Even though the maximum charging power is only 50 kilowatts on paper, which is quite low by today's standards, it's very, very consistent. The i3 generally doesn't care whether the battery is cold, hot, it always jumps to about 45 to 50 kilowatts, depending on the voltage. By the way, just a pro tip with these IONITY stations, this bar shows you the state of charge. So even from afar you can see that the car is 2/3 full, yet I've only been here for 15 minutes, so I will get going shortly. But just look at it. I'm not saying it's quite a Porsche Taycan, but even after all of these years, it has aged really, really well. And obviously this one is the pre-facelift, as you can tell by the older style headlights. And in terms of options, it only has the wheels and the upgraded interior, but it still looks like a properly modern car. That was a very quick stop, under 30 minutes. Yet the car is already up to 95.5%. That's what I am saying, that the i3, even though it only charges 50 kilowatts, it charges nice and flat. So it's really usable 50 kilowatts in real world conditions. Let's turn the ventilation back on and continue with the journey down south. Just so you know, the IONITY chargers, they are not at Stafford services, they are a little bit further down south, less than half a mile off the motorway. And even though it was busy, there was always availability, so no queues whatsoever so far. My next stop is Watford Gap services, about 65 miles away, so again, I should get there with plenty of range. So I think I did overcharge a little bit again, but I was just taking my time, I had a snack, and I'm enjoying the journey. Beautiful i4 ahead of us, but you see, with these cars, BMW really changed their strategy, because it's no longer bespoke, designed as an electric vehicle from the ground up, but basically it's just a 4 Series Grand Coupe with batteries and electric motors stuffed in. Any of you watching who drive i3s, let us know in the comments whether you would consider upgrading to the i4 or the iX, iX3, or whether you would simply look at offerings from other manufacturers. Cruise control on, and I will catch up with you at the next top-up spot, hopefully before the sun sets. While I have the joy of sitting here in traffic after regrettably not taking the M6 toll road, let me tell you about one of the other things which we think the i3 did really well. It's one of those things that doesn't really get mentioned in normal reviews. You often hear, whether a car has one-pedal driving or not, but not all one-pedal driving is made equal. If you don't know what one-pedal driving means, it's the basic concept that with electric cars, the electric motor is also used as a generator when slowing down, and that creates resistance on the wheels. So when I, for example, lift off the pedals completely, like right now, the car should decelerate using the motor braking to a complete stop. For example, the Fiat 500e, which we did review on our channel, would do that in certain modes, using actual brakes to then grab the car at very low speeds, but those brakes would start being applied at 2 miles per hour, which would mean that the overall experience was quite jerky and unrefined. Literally from the outside it would seem like you are a learner driver trying to hill start a manual car. So even though we did appreciate the fact that it was there, it wasn't the most pleasant experience. Here you can see when I let go of the pedal, we come to a very smooth stop, and we are on a slight uphill, and the brakes did engage at that time to make sure that we don't roll backwards. If you want a comparison of what other cars have this level of regen and one-pedal driving tuning, we are talking about Teslas, Polestars and so on, really proper electric vehicles. And to think that BMW managed to do it so well in 2013, they really were ahead of the game. They were much better than Tesla at that time. The same thing goes for applying power. I can very precisely go from coasting, as you can hopefully see now with the bar being in the middle of the half circle just below the speedo. But if I wanted to go on power again, the transitions are super smooth. I appreciate that some new drivers may find this a little bit jarring, but in that case you can flip the car into Eco Pro mode, which detunes the accelerator pedal sensitivity. So I need to press a lot deeper to get going. And I don't quite know how the regen works, but it does seem a bit smoother because of the longer mapping. Especially in stop-start traffic like this, I'm not really annoyed at all. It's a very smooth, comfortable experience. It would be even better if I had the adaptive cruise control with the self-steering assist, but it's quite a rare option on the i3, and to be fair, it doesn't work the best in all conditions. But in a situation like this, on the motorway, when it's not raining, the lines are clearly visible, I'm sure it would have done a decent job. Back to the driving and controls. On the i3, the accelerator pedal is the only thing which controls the regen. So unlike some Korean products, you cannot change the strength using paddles underneath the steering wheel. But to be fair, BMW had some very good reason for that, and that is because the moment you touch the brake pedal, instead of the computer deciding whether to use the electric motor to slow down or the friction brakes, here you go immediately to friction brakes, which makes it very consistent and predictable. Whereas with some early blended brake systems, you can feel the transition from the regen into the friction brakes. This 40 miles per hour really is quite dreadful. It's testing my patience, but at least it will naturally improve the efficiency numbers. Well, I spoke too soon. 40 miles per hour would have been actually quite decent. Now we are doing under 20. Great. As I was passing Watford Gap services, I still had about half of battery left, so I went past Newport Pagnell and now I'm at Milton Keynes Coachway. It's the dual site where you've got IONITY and BP Pulse. IONITY was not busy, so I plugged in there because I just prefer the app. It gives you lots of details. But having said that, even these pre-facelift i3s still get app access. Supposedly, even going forward, it should rely on the 2G network instead of 3G. We will see how that works in practice. I'm not willing to promise anything, but either way, I need to get going. It was about a 20-minute stop, plugged in with 25% still in the battery. The i3 is very efficient, and now I'm already up to almost 90%. So, time to get going for the last leg to London. What a journey that was. If you're coming into London from up north, you basically have a choice to cut directly through town or go around on the M25. That obviously increases the length of the route, and I thought Friday evening I'm going against the flow of traffic, it should be simple to cut through. Well, I picked incorrectly and there are two consequences of that. Firstly, I've arrived with way too much state of charge because I was expecting the longer route, and obviously it increased the journey time. I will put up all the stats on the screen now, with the important one being efficiency. It settled at 4.2 miles per kilowatt hour for the entire journey, which I would say is very good, especially considering that most of it was done at motorway speeds. And the i3 is not really designed to be a cruiser with an aerodynamically blunt shape. Just for context, in the city at low speeds, you can easily exceed 5 miles per kilowatt hour without trying too hard. Before you accuse us of giving up on the i3, that's not true. Yes, if you look at our Auto Trader and filter for BMWs, I think there's only a single lonely BMW M2 which we took in part exchange. But that's not because we have given up on i3s, that's because they sell so well. Most of our stock sells before it actually reaches Auto Trader, so if you're interested in one, feel free to get in touch. And I think that brings us on to the conclusion, because we can talk about efficiency, range, charging speeds and so on for a very long time, but it doesn't really capture what the i3 is about. You have to keep in mind, it basically is in a category of its own. Normally, when you want a premium luxury vehicle, they tend to be large, heavy, and respectively expensive. Whereas with the i3, we think it's the only truly premium compact city car on the market. So if you live in the city and you just want to enjoy something nice for your day-to-day commutes, going to the shops, dropping kids off to school, the i3 really is still a perfect car and there is no replacement for it. Like the video if you agree. As always, thank you very much for watching and see you in the next one.